Well, in our last week's show, we talked about the five best landing spots for these rookies in the NFL. Sigmund, let's take the apophatic view. How about the worst landing spots for some of these rookies? And the landing spot is dependent not necessarily on the player. These are all players that we like. These are all players that are talented, but these are all players that are in certain situations. So I suppose before we jump into the list, let's
Yeah.
just to explain our stance of why we're doing this show, because sometimes landing spot is great. It's all about fit in the NFL. Sometimes the fit's not so great, Bob.
Yeah, well, there's fit, so we can actually look at scheme and contemplated role for players. There is just is this organization good at developing this kind of player? Do they create a fantasy rich environment for them? We look the simplest level, which I think is very valid. What's the current depth chart? Are the opportunities going to be there? Is there a quarterback there that's going to help keep the offense viable? How's the offensive line? How about the coaching? Is the coaching creative? Is it the kind of coaches that meet a player where they are, or are we going to have some square peg, round hole stuff like we do every year? So there's a lot of layers, and it's good because, as we always talk about, Cease, in the draft, every football conversation can start with the draft. So let's have one.
Yeah, so let's have one, and let's start with number 5 on the list. He's puking his guts out. New guy's over in the corner puking his guts out. He's puking on the field. He's Cam Scataboo. He's certainly a fan favorite, to be sure. Lots of power, lots of intent as a runner. They're talking about using him as a receiver as well, but Tyrone Tracy is there with the Giants. Plus, Bloom, as you mentioned off air, like it's the Giants. So
Yeah.
Scataboo, player we appreciate. He was actually my number 10 running back, so I'm not as high on Scataboo as others, but you see the skill, and then you see him with the Giants. You're like, whoa, where's he going to fit? How's he going to get on the field?
Yeah, there's some overlap with Tyrone Tracy. Remember, former wide receiver there also. What we liked about Scataboo, the classic game against Texas, that endurance, that stamina, well, he's going to be in a committee. And he should get some passing down work. Will he get goal line work? I guess your glass half full take here for Scataboo is if Tracy keeps fumbling, then Scataboo can maybe become the one and Tracy is the 1A. But it's the Giants. And see, what concerns me most about the Giants is, will these coaches be there next year? Will the GM that selected Scataboo be there next year? What will the
Right.
next regime think of him? Because Scataboo's a player, see, if Scataboo had ended up with Jacksonville or Denver, then we would say wheels up. Scataboo is a player that can transcend his limitations athletically. We've seen that already. But this is not a situation where he's going to transcend his limitations athletically because he's with a very athletic back. And then who knows what the future holds for the Giants.
Yeah, who knows what the future holds for that team, and new regime comes in, things could just be different for the Arizona State back. Now, the next one is pretty spicy, Bloom, as we were putting together our list, because you look at Tyler Warren and everything he could do, and he's wearing 44 like John Riggins because his dad made him watch John Riggins highlight. Like, again, we love the talent, but the landing spot with the Colts, and especially with the Colts saying Daniel Jones is going to get some time. There may be a
Yeah.
package of plays for Daniel Jones if he doesn't just out and out win the starting job. So, again, Warren, fantastic player, versatile player. I said Colson Levin was the best tight end in this class. I said Tyler Warren's the best whatever in
Yeah.
this class because he's kind of an H back and a tight end and a fullback and whatever you want him to be. But with the Colts, and again, the GM situation,
Right.
like the quarterback situation, it could be a little interesting for the first rounder.
How do you get enough production to matter when Adonai Mitchell, Josh Downs, and Michael Pittman can't? So there's
Right.
the problem with the Colts is not that they lack skill position talent and have a diversity of skill position talent. It's the quarterback, and this is a run first offense anyway. Really, the headline I'm bearing the lead here is Tyler Warren with his short yardage, rich man's Taysom Hill outlook. You're not going to give him touches at the goal line over Jonathan Taylor. You're not going to make him a wildcat quarterback over Anthony Richardson. That's absurd. So as much as he had to offer in that aspect of his game, it's not needed for the Colts. And then making him part of the passing game, he's not going to be a signature player. He's not going to be Trey McBride. He's not going to be Brock Bowers. Okay, he may not even be Mark Andrews because this offense isn't going to create a lot of touchdowns. This offense isn't going to create a lot of passing touchdowns. So you're looking at Tyler Warren as a player that the other thing, Cecil, I want to say that people need to be careful is you might look at tight ends that have gone in the top 15 of the draft over the last 20 or 25 years. That's not necessarily valid because this year, after the third pick between the third and fourth pick, massive drop off. Will Campbell, bless his heart, he's going to be a really good contributor. He's going to be a really good addition to the Patriots. He's the kind of offensive lineman that went in the second half of the first round in most drafts. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So Tyler Warren going in the top 14 might make some folks say, oh, he's going to be a centerpiece of the offense. I don't think so. I think it's more a sign that this draft was lacking true blue chippers, even though Tyler Warren is a player that they were targeting. I just don't see a path to sustain fantasy production for him.
Well, and here's the God's honest truth, Sigmund. As you well know, not everyone's Brock Bowers.
Right.
I think there was a Bowers bump, much like years ago, and I'll say this because I'm old, but you remember when, if you looked at the Devin Hester bump, right? I always said that about
Right.
Ted Ginn, because wasn't Ted Ginn like top 12, whatever the number was?
Yeah.
Like Ted Ginn was overdrafted because Devin Hester. And so people saw Devin Hester like, we got to get something like that. And then Ginn was okay, right? But there was a Bowers bump this year, and it's just
right. When Tyler Warren is
nobody's
probably
Brock
closer.
Bowers.
Right. And Tyler Warren, and this is not, I'm not putting Tyler Warren down. He's probably
No.
closer to Tucker Kraft. That's great. Every team would like to have a Tucker Kraft. How excited would you be to take Tucker Kraft in the first round of your rookie draft? That's what I thought.
Mm-hmm. There you go. All right. Now, the next one, very sensitive, Sigmund. So stick with me here because I know you love the Lions. Not wearing your Lion shirt today. I'm wearing my Knicks gear, though, because, 2-0. I did say, like, oh, now watch. They probably won't win another game. But hey, you got 2 in Boston. Anyway, concludes our NBA talk. But I'm going to talk about the Lions. I'm going to talk about Isaac Tesla. Don't burn his car down. But, like, I look at this and I go, love the talent, love the speed, love that he's a freak. Don't love the landing spot because they didn't move Jamison Williams. So again, this isn't about the talent of the player. This is about the landing spot. And with Tesla, they're talking about using him on special teams because where's the role on offense, Bloom?
Yeah, you're probably looking at year 3 in any scenario. I mean, I guess the glass half full take here is Isaac Tesla coming from Hillsdale and then Arkansas. You were looking at him as a player not making an impact until the second half of his rookie contract anyway. So with the Lions, the one good thing, I'm going to sort of counterbalance having him on this list and say any offensive player that lands with the Lions, we should say, well, at least he landed with the Lions. At least he landed in a rich fantasy environment. But see, you can see how good the Lions are at finding and harvesting value out of guys like Tim Patrick, out of Khalif Raymond. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, they're always going to have a wide array of players. So Isaac Tesla, while he has the alpha outside receiver athletic profile, down to the big mitts, like 10 plus inch hands, Detroit doesn't really have a role for that kind of receiver. There's not a true alpha receiver. If there is, it's Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's not going anywhere. Sam Laporte is there. Oh, by the way, Jahmyr Gibbs is going to continue to play a large role in the passing game. And if it's not Tim Patrick and Khalif Raymond, there'll be other complementary players. So it's just as much as they loved Isaac Tesla. And look, Isaac Tesla, see, if we were doing a who gained the most value during the draft, Isaac Tesla is on that list too, because most people saw him as a third-day pick, and the Lions saw him as worth 3 third-round picks. So the Lions just had to have him. So that's kind of interesting and exciting. But if you're looking for fantasy production, you're going to be looking a few years off in the horizon.
Speaking of a few years off, and I love the duo, the Cyclones duo, and Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel. Like, absolutely love them. They go to the same team in the Houston Texans. Actually love that, Sigmund, but not for Jalen Noel, because again, like, we're now a few years away from seeing him out there based on the talent they already have with the Texans. And then the fact that his teammate, the preferred teammate, in my opinion, was Higgins, but still love them both. It's just now with Jalen Noel, if you're the Houston Texans, you're like, oh, get in line. because there is a long line of talented wide receivers in front of Jalen Noel, including his own teammate, Jaden Higgins, from this very same draft class.
Yeah, like cyclone on cyclone crime here, in the sense that we thought that, okay, CJ Stroud, after his impressive rookie year, he can support Nico Collins and Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs. At least ADP last year showed there was a belief of that. All right. Tank Dell goes down, Stephon Diggs goes down. Now we see Nico Collins actually grow into the kind of role I was talking about. Isaac Tesla does not have a path to. Well, that's Nico Collins, who was a 4th round pick, by the way. Nico Collins, whose deal looks like his extension looks like a bargain already. So Nico Collins is going to be the alpha. And see, I think we could put Higgins and Noel together in this take, because if you're saying Higgins got more draft capital, early 2nd round pick, Higgins also overlaps so much with Collins as far as his strengths. So when CJ Stroud wants to take a shot downfield on a contested catch 50-50 ball, I mean, Collins is his guy if he wants to air it out. Noel does have some of Diggs' skill set for getting open, separation out of the slot, and he has some of Tank Dell's skill set for some speed to get downfield. But it's much more difficult after we saw what Dell and Diggs did. Those guys add a lot more value. Can CJ Stroud support Collins and Noel and Higgins? Yes, in year 3 as these guys develop, maybe. So that's the hard part about them doubling up on these Iowa State receivers. If they had just taken one or the other, we'd be a lot more excited.
Yeah, we would be a lot more excited, that's for sure. So we'll continue to watch all of these with our great interest, but we have our number one guy, and this is a very, very large conversation. In fact, the
We
whole
could do
show
a whole
could have been
show
on
on this.
Shadur
Yeah.
Sanders. Yeah, it could all be on Shadur Sanders because it's not only about Shadur. It's about the fall, it's about the drop, it's about Dylan Gabriel getting drafted ahead of him, and all apologies, Dylan Gabriel can't play, okay? Shadur Sanders can in the right system, in the right fit. So let's go back and forth on this one, Bloom, because again, this could have been the entire show. The Shadur Sanders show, which Cleveland may be. And here's the thing I've always said on the local airwaves, as everyone's super interested in the future of Shadur Sanders. I say he could be the starter week 1 or he could be on the practice squad. I don't
Right.
know which one's going to happen.
Right. Or refuse to go to the practice squad. That's also an outcome. And Cease, we're solving for X. Like, what happened? What happened? What happened? Even Dane Brugler, other talent evaluators, saying he's a 2nd round pick. He's a 2nd round pick. And then maybe just innocuous as he was a 2nd round pick, but so was basically Jackson Dart and Tyler Shuck, and Jalen Milroe was a 3rd round pick. Okay. You bring up Dylan Gabriel. Kevin Stefanski liked his point guard approach to playing quarterback, his quick trigger, what have you. But maybe it's just that there was only 6 or 7 teams that would even consider taking a quarterback in the 1st or 2nd day. And then out of those teams, the ones that were left were just not into him. Now, was it so bad? Because I think there was speculation like that he went into the room and said, "I won't be a backup," which you want your quarterback to have confidence and things like that. Maybe it's that we can get into parenting, and I'm really curious what you have to say about this since you're in the local market there. But is the NFL saying like something that people are bemoaning about young people now, that everything's been too easy? Everything's been too easy for him. Everything has been geared specifically to him. And it's Deion Sanders is going to be coaching his next team. Remember all that speculation not that long ago? Oh, the Cowboys are going to draft Sanders and Deion's going to be the coach, or the Raiders are. Okay, well, that's a different situation, because that the trajectory for Shadur Sanders is going to be the same. There's going to be an environment that is totally geared to him. So I think that we can certainly say that teams said, well, how's he going to do getting with our program? And they weren't encouraged. So hopefully what happens here is this fall and this humbling experience for Sanders, who said right before the draft, I'm ready for what this day is going to bring. We'll find out. It wasn't this day. It was the next day after that. And the next day after that, actually. It was the next 3
It
days.
was
He wasn't ready
Saturday,
for
yeah.
that, I think.
Right.
Yeah. So how see, this is something we can take back to each of our own lives. Like, how do you handle setbacks? How do you handle getting a rejection, basically? Do you
Mhm.
turn it into motivation? Does it put you into a tailspin? We'll see. I'm very curious what happens here, because it very well might be, Cease, that if Sanders was a first or early second round pick, he was going to crater. But because of this experience, he's going to get the message about meeting people where they are, instead of feeling like the world is going to just fall by your feet and lay out a path for you. So it's a great story, a compelling story, and it's really up to Shadur Sanders what the moral of the story is in the end.
I just wish he went to a better landing spot. Because again, like who's gonna shepherd him in the future? If Stefanski's bounced or whatever, this is
Right.
clearly a pick the owner, Jimmy Haslam, made the pick. You can't tell me in that war room where everyone's like, "Yay, Shadur
Right.
Sanders." It was like Pavlov's dogs. It was so odd. It was
Yeah.
very bizarre. Like
Yeah.
on cue start, on cue stop clapping, and Jimmy Haslam standing right behind all those guys. Like that didn't look like a good work environment. So he's entering already in a situation where it's my opinion that the owner made them draft him. He's stepping into a situation where he's the fifth quarterback. Well, Deshaun, whatever. So fourth quarterback.
Right.
All right. And a couple misnomers. Everyone's like, Shadur is super entitled. Yeah. But also from everyone I've talked to, and Shadur Sanders, like away from football, super kind,
Yeah.
like very kind, like walk you home to your dorm type thing because it's nighttime, like that sort of kind, a gentle kind of person. And well, we know the NFL, if you're gentle like that, probably chews you up and spits you out. But
Yeah.
like kind, humble, motivated, smart, like all these sorts of things. Then we hear the rumblings of the Giants, who spent the most time with him, and I won't be hyperbolic, but they spent the most time with him and ended up hating him. They spent the most time with him and ended up moving up for Jackson Dart, who is a
Yeah.
Drew Lock. He's a version of Drew Lock,
Right.
basically. And then Matt Miller said this, and I think it holds true. And we'll wrap it up on this, Bloom, but I want to get your feedback. Miller said on Twitter, hey, now in today's NFL, if you're not seen as a starter, you're seen as a day 3 pick. Maybe
Right.
the, middle round, here, where's our Andy Dalton at? Like where's that third round? He's plucky, you know what I mean? Like, where's that guy we can get and then just see what happens? Russell Wilson springs to mind or whatever, because Dak was a fourth rounder, etc. But like maybe that day, maybe the NFL's kind of learned, and plus it was a bad quarterback class. It was Cam and Shadur, basically. And everyone's fluffing up Jackson Dart or whoever. And even, Quinn Ewers falls to the seventh. Hell, where'd Will Howard go? Right? Like
Right.
that's these are further down the list than a normal quote unquote quarterback class because it's not great, Bob. So there's a lot again to unpack with Shadur, and it's more than just on the field Shadur. On the field Shadur, he's a pocket passer who can slice you up. He can't run. His arm's not that strong, but it's not weak by any means. So again, lots to get to.
Yeah, I think you're onto something. Matt Miller's onto something in the sense that you put together your board, and there's a reason why we say if a quarterback's not a first round quarterback, because especially in the latest CBA, if a quarterback, if you see him as a starter, you feel like you have to take him in the first. You have to, because some other team is also going to see him as a starter. And you're going to get locked into that rookie contract. It frees up so much flexibility to build a winning team. So if you do your process and your process at the end says first round pick, then you take that quarterback in the first round. And if your process doesn't say future starter first round pick, then you're also working up all these other players. And you like the guard. You get a starting guard in the third round. You know, you can get at least a core piece of your defense at linebacker or safety in the fourth round, right? You can get this draft, you can get potentially starting running back in the fourth round. So if you didn't like Shadur Sanders enough to give him a first round grade or maybe top of the second round grade, then you're not going to take him over somebody that you're projecting as a starter at another position. So Matt Miller's right on, and I think you're right. It's kind of the haves and have-nots in terms of quarterbacks, but the exception, this is coming soon on our draft recap shows, Jalen Milroe. because I think people are going to see Jalen Milroe falling to the late third round, and they're going to say Malik Willis. And again, I'm going to say check in on Malik Willis's career. By the way, that might not be putting him down. It might just be he needed time. Malik Willis just needed time and a better organization to develop him than the Tennessee Titans. Sorry. So Jalen Milroe is one of those players that I think the NFL just almost by nature underrates. And perhaps what's better for him is, unlike Shadur Sanders, him falling to the third round isn't being seen as some sort of rejection of his talents. And unlike Shadur Sanders, he's probably going to have a chance to start next year.
All right, that's a wrap for today's program. We are the Audible. 20 years of the Audible. We're celebrating with you all year long. He's Sigmund Bloom. You follow him on the socials at Sigmund Bloom. I'm at Cecil Lamey. The show is at the Audible. Were you doing the Staying Alive thing?
Yeah. 20 years, 20 years, 20 years.
Staying Alive. That's right. Kicking it with you. He's Sig. I'm Cease. We are the Audible. Everyone out there, stay tuned. And would you please stay frosty?